What is your name and how do I know you?
My name is Tom Getchell. I'm your papa.
You are.
Yeah.
All right.
I know Riley because he's my grandson.
When and where were you born?
I was born in 1936. That's a long time ago. 50 miles west of Dodge City in a farm community called Garden City, Kansas. We were farmers.
Do you remember anything about the Cold War as a child? Or what was your first memory about the Cold War?
My first memory about the Cold War was probably when I graduated from high school and went into the service.
How did you and your family prepare for a possible attack during the Cold War?
There was really no way that we prepared for an atomic attack. We actually knew that there was a possibility, but we weren't concerned about an atomic attack. Now, during World War II and shortly after that, we didn't have atomic weapons weren't in play at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But in case of any kind of an attack, if we were at school, it was dive underneath the desk. We had no shelters to go to. So actually there's just really no protection or no place where we could go.
What is your clearest memory of the Cold War?
The clearest memory of the Cold War to me, well, when I was in the service, and I was with the Air Defense Command, and we were, I was in radar. We had radar, and we had to scan the skies, especially on the West Coast and Alaska. We scanned the skies for any unidentified aircraft. And we were, that was my biggest part right there as far as the Cold War, because we were constantly threatened or possible threats from Russia. And when I was in Alaska, we were pretty close to Russia. And we observed and picked up on our radar several aircraft bombers from Russia that was approaching the United States. Alaska at that time was not a state. It was part of this of the United States, but it wasn't considered a state until later on. So during my service time, that's when we were constantly on the alert 24/7 for any attack that might come about.
Mm-hmm. Did you experience affect any relationships or your experience with other people from other countries like Russia?
No, I did not experience anything like that with individuals in relation to the Cold War. The Cold War, to me, was between Russia and the continental United States. But as far as being friends or related in any way to Russia individuals, I had no contact. There was no contact there.
Did you ever legitimately believe that nuclear weapons would be used?
Yes. During this time, I was concerned that there was a possibility that nuclear weapons would be used. But fortunately, instead of using weapons, there was a lot of talking going on. And during this time, this was a big buildup of armament. As Russia, they continually built up their atomic nuclear weapon system. And the United States did the same. Although the United States had nuclear weapons, starting with World War II, but we also continued to develop atomic weapons. And there was a big buildup there. Not only atomic weapons, but any armed forces, they continually piled up their equipment and what have you, because it was two countries trying to find out who could be the strongest.
Do you believe that we will ever experience another Cold War?
Yes, I think we're in a Cold War now.
With what country?
Especially with the country of Iran and the country of North Korea. Those are the two countries that I think that, and they both have nuclear atomic warfare capabilities. It is a Cold War. And we're just trying to find out a way to diffuse that.
Do you remember the Cuban Missile Crisis?
I do remember the Cuban Missile Crisis. President Kennedy was involved in that. And as Russia was giving the country of Cuba, which is offshore the United States, Russia, and that was a communist government at that time in Cuba. And that is, Cuba then was seeking or getting weapons from Russia. And Russia was also, they had atomic submarines. They had submarines there that was heading for Russia with possibly atomic weapons on them. And fortunately, through Kennedy, he was able to defuse that. And Russia had to leave the country of Cuba. And we kept them at that, but they were still a communist country. Cuba was still a communist country. And that was diffused until the present time.
Do you recall the McCarthy era? Or the second Red Scare?
That was when I was younger, and I really didn't. I knew of the MacArthur era, but I really didn't, wasn't too involved in that. I didn't study, I really didn't understand the situation, to tell you the truth. And I wasn't interested in it, although I knew it was a problem, and I still don't understand it.
How is the Berlin Wall significant to the Cold War?
After World War II, we left Germany. Russia took over part of Germany as their country. They built the wall to separate, to divide Germany between East and West. And they built a wall. The people on the east part were communists, or under the control of Russia. And of course, on the other side of the wall, they were with the Europe area. They were somewhat free to go. But the Germans couldn't cross over. They couldn't visit each other because of the wall. And we know then that when Reagan became president, he, through diplomacy, what have you, he was able to have Russia tear down the wall. Because of various reasons, I guess. But he was able to have that wall torn down so that the people could intermix.
What was the significance of the Vietnam War?
Wow. That is Vietnam War. Again, it was the some Vietnam people or rulers were influenced by communism. And they wanted to make that whole country a communist country. So we were there to try to prevent the whole country from becoming communist, a communist country. That's from my understanding. So it was a difficult war. I mean, it's a sad war. It's a terrible war. And through diplomatic reasons, ways, we were able to separate the northern part from the southern part with a line. Same way with North Korea, same way.
Okay.
North Korea, again, they wanted part of it to become